Jacob Zuma is now officially no longer a member of the ANC, but in Jacob Zuma fashion, that doesn't mean anything to him because he is pursuing other options to regain his membership of the ANC, and in fact, he has a plan to take over the ANC again. And this is what he discussed with Sunday Times with a little bit of detail. But before we go there, let's go into some context. Before the May elections, the ANC charged Jacob Zuma for endorsing the MK party after he had announced that he founded and supported the party at a press briefing in December of 2023. He was accused of contravening Rule 25.177 of the ANC Constitution, which forbids acting on behalf or in collaboration with the political organization or party other than an organization or party in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, policies, and objectives of the ANC. This is what Zuma was charged with and found guilty of contravening. He was also charged with contravening Rule 25.17.13 of the ANC Constitution, which forbids joining or supporting a political organization or party other than an organization in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, objectives, and policies of the ANC. So this is what he was found guilty of contravening. Before I continue, isn't it possible that other people are also guilty of this from a strict ANC perspective? Acting on behalf of or in collaboration with the political organization or party other than an organization, right, of a party in alliance with the ANC or in a manner contrary to the aims, policies, and objectives of the ANC. The DA has aims, policies, and objectives which are contrary to the aims and objectives of the ANC. So from an ANC purist perspective, could it not be said that the Ramaphosa administration in and of itself has contravened the ANC constitution? Because they stayed in power by going into coalition with the DA in this coalition government that they formed, but at what cost to the foundational values and interests of the ANC? The DA opposes land reform. The DA opposes the state being able to provide certain infrastructure, and once those parts of infrastructure privatized, the DA opposes having inclusive language policies at schools which allow communities which have diversified in identity and are no longer predominantly Afrikaans to provide dual medium learning. And we saw that when John Steenhuisen went to the Voortrekker Monument in Pretoria to protest with AfriForum, with Solidarity and other organizations at a monument which was used by the apartheid regime for nationalist purposes. Isn't there an argument to be made that Jacob Zuma is not the only person, perhaps, who has acted in a way contrary to the objectives of the ANC? When billionaires and oligarchs praise a coalition between the ANC and the DA, are those interests really the interests of the rank and file of the ANC? It's an open-ended question. Let's have a conversation about that in the comments. So Zuma was charged with this, and we all know that there was lots of hesitation and dithering on the issue of this Zuma discipline issue because they were afraid that it would help Zuma, because the ANC was not looking very strong at the beginning of the year. The polling was not looking good. MK was winning cases left, right, and center in the courts, and they were gaining lots of momentum. So to expel Zuma prior to the election would have been something that would have caused a lot of turmoil within the organization. And in fact, in a letter that was dated 3 May, which was sent by Fikile Mbalula to the chairperson of the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee, this is what he had said at the time. Based on an assessment of the security situation prevailing at Luthuli House, we are advised that activities, including disciplinary hearings, that attract large gatherings are not advisable as they have the potential to result in violence, especially so close to the national and provincial elections scheduled for 29 May 2024. Mbalula also added, accordingly, the ANC officials have decided that such activities should be held in abeyance until after the national and provincial elections. This includes the disciplinary hearing of Jacob Zuma. So you can see there was some apprehension, tension, and, reluctance to have any disciplinary hearing before the election, because there was an appreciation that this could shift more people to MK party and show actually that the ANC was nervous about the MK. And they were right to be nervous. At the time, they were pretending like they're unbothered. Who is Zuma? Zuma this, Zuma that, in a way that was dismissive. Fikile Mbalula was one of the chief proponents of that. But that proved to be a very, very unhelpful strategy for the ANC. I don't know if there's anything that they could have done really, except for not pursuing Zuma harshly in the way that they did, in a way that actually precipitated the formation of the ANC. Of the MK party. So there are things that they could have done prior, but at that point, there was nothing that could have been done, right? The oxtail was on the oven, not on the oven, on the stove cooking, right? The disciplinary hearing was then held in July, and they didn't want to have an in-person hearing. And this was really to avoid Jacob Zuma stepping into the ANC building, making his political case with MK supporters outside of Luthuli House. The optics of that kind of a moment were still unbearable to the ANC, so a virtual hearing was pursued. Tony Yengeni went online to make a case for Jacob Zuma, but Zuma himself said, and I'm having internet pity here. And he didn't log on to that particular meeting. And here's my view on that particular hearing. My view on hearings in general is that they should be held in person so that the person can give their version in person, have their countenance and disposition assessed in real time. And, you need to assess contrition, you need to assess demeanor of a witness, of somebody who's accused. You can't necessarily do that virtually. You lose a lot when there's a camera. If you were hanging out with me in a room, it would be totally different to how it is on camera. But I do try to bring that energy across the camera. So I hope that you feel the energy, you feel the excitement, the joy that I have when I make these videos. But fundamentally, an examination is much better in person. Also, it gives that person space to face their accusers, to cross-examine witnesses. And being in the room is different to not being in the room. When people are talking a lot of nonsense online, sometimes when you meet those people in person, they shrink. They don't have that energy anymore, because the fact that you were far away allowed them to be bolder, to say things more loudly, more vociferously. And being in the room changes the dynamic. And then people really have to stand on business, and they have to stand 10 toes on what they were speaking about. And removing that actually allows people who are abusing the virtuality of the platform and the distance that it creates. I think it's not useful. So I think the virtual forum is not ideal for this type of thing. In person is still best. Jacob Zuma was found guilty. He appealed the decision. And just a few days ago, the ANC actually announced that they are upholding the appeal of the disciplinary committee. And this is what the ANC's statement in part said about this. Discipline is a core function of our movement, ensuring unity of purpose and unity in action. It is during testing moments of trial and challenge that the most advanced cadres are distinguished by their unwavering commitment to the principles which have held this movement together, respect for organizational processes and loyalty to the collective decisions of the movement. Mr. Zuma's behavior exemplifies the highest form of ill discipline and a direct assault on the historical mission of the ANC. By establishing and leading a rival political party, he abandoned the core values of organizational loyalty and collective accountability, converting himself into a tool for destabilization. ANC's traditions do not call for unity for its own sake, devoid of critical reflection, engagement, and accountability. The selfless commitment to the national democratic revolution demands that cadres place the collective movement and its processes above their ambitions, and organizational discipline compels adherence to the movement's decisions. even in the face of adversity. As a former president of the ANC, Mr. Zuma was expected to embody the highest standards of disciplined leadership and advanced cadres who serve as guides and inspiration for all members of our movement and society. Instead, his actions have undermined the unity and cohesion of the movement at a time when it is critical to consolidate and push forward with organizational renewal and confront pressing challenges facing South Africa. This severe breach of our organizational foundation necessitated his expulsion to safeguard the ANC's integrity and ensure the unity of the organization remains in form and content. This is what the ANC spokesperson released after Zuma was expelled. And Zuma has provided his own response through the Jacob Zuma Foundation. And this is what the Jacob Zuma Foundation statement reads as follows. The Jacob Zuma Foundation notes the decision made by the ANC National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal, confirming the alleged expulsion of its patron, His Excellency President Zuma, from his 65-year-long membership of the ANC. His Excellency President Zuma remains fully engaged in his political and social commitments. Yesterday, he presided over the two-day meeting of the National High Command of Umkhonto weSizwe, and today he's attending the funeral of 6 MK women members who tragically lost their lives in an accident while traveling to Nkandla. His Excellency, President Zuma, strongly rejects the notion that the ANC, under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa, has the authority to expel him from the movement to which he has dedicated his life. In the coming days, His Excellency, President Zuma, will consult with his legal team, his ANC representative, Comrade Tony Yengeni, his family, and his political comrades to deliberate on the way forward. Once a decision has been reached, it will be communicated to the nation by His Excellency, issued by the Jacob Zuma Foundation. So that's the statement that they gave. But even before the ANC decision was released, Jacob Zuma did an interview which came out today on Sunday Times. And in that interview, he disclosed his ANC take-back plan. And this is what Zuma said in part: "We will take over from the ones who are selling out." Then he outlined why he wants to remain a member of the organization. "If I was not a member of the organization, it would be very difficult because they are going to say, 'What do you want from our organization?' And that will be the end of the debate. If I'm a member, they are going to say, 'Why are you coming?' If I'm a member, they're not going to say, 'Why are you coming to argue here?' Because I'm going to say that you actually deviated from what our ancestors said is mine and to take you out." So you can see that Zuma is intent on maintaining the narrative that he is illegitimately expelled from the ANC, right? Even though the ANC has given this perspective that this decision is final, in politics, there are formal solutions and political solutions. Political something, right? Because even now, Zuma is arguing that he has other options. Other options including a possible application to the National Executive Committee for a review of his expulsion and a possible approach to National Conference, which has the right to review, ratify, alter, or rescind decisions made by the party structures. So Zuma is still exercising his options. And to be quite honest with you, he's not wrong to say that these decisions can be reversed at a higher level if that higher level thinks that it is in their benefits of the organization or even the leaders of that particular level to rescind that decision. So Zuma also said that his plan to take control of the ANC includes merging all black political parties, including the EFF, under the MK umbrella to remove the ANC from power. He said once that's been concluded, he would take over the ANC from its current leaders, right? So Zuma said even though he's the leader of the MK party, it's important that he retains his ANC membership. And this is where things are right now. So basically what Zuma is describing as his plan is a hostile takeover. In business, a hostile takeover is an acquisition strategy where one company, the acquirer, seeks to gain control of another company, the target, without the consent or approval of the target's board of directors, or if you will, top 6 of the ANC. This type of takeover is characterized by the target company's management being opposed to the opposition or the acquisition, hence the term hostile, it's very clear that people in Cyril Ramaphosa's camp are opposed to Jacob Zuma's presence or re-emergence in the ANC. Fikile Mbalula, Ronald Damula, you name it. They are opposed to the return of Zuma. So hostile takeovers typically occur through two primary methods. A tender offer: the acquirer offers to buy shares from the target company's shareholders at a premium price, aiming to purchase enough shares to gain controlling interest, usually taking over 50% of the voting stock. That's a tender offer. Then you've got what applies to this situation, a proxy fight. The acquirer persuades shareholders to vote out the current management in favor of new directors who are more amenable to the takeover, thereby facilitating control over the target company. ANC has a conference coming up. The shareholders of the ANC are the branches, the members of the ANC, not the leadership. The executive doesn't control the party in a genuine sense. They control the party from conference to conference. But there's a new conference coming up. Cyril Ramaphosa is not going to be on the ballot. They are young lions who don't necessarily want the ANC to be a minority party, who want to rule outright, who don't like the Democratic Alliance, don't like the fact that billionaires are able to control them through the Democratic Alliance, through the media. And those shareholders, if they are so persuaded, may make a merger with MK and other entities, right? So Jacob Zuma currently is making a case to the shareholders of the ANC, the branch members. And in part, this is what he's saying. And by the way, I think many of them are going to be persuaded by this. He's saying these people in charge of the ANC are not holding up the values of the organization. Fikile Mbalula, Cyril Ramaphosa, these guys are not holding up our leftist traditions, they're not holding up our socialist traditions, and they are selling the party to billionaires, to Stellenbosch, to oligarchs, and oligarchs are basically getting everything they want from Ramaphosa. So that's one of the things he's going to be arguing. He's going to be arguing and saying to the members, the people in charge are making deals with the DA, which opposes everything that we stand for. He's making the deal that even this particular administration was bought by billions of rands being poured into ANC conferences to buy delegates. That's what he's going to be arguing. Then he's going to be actually also making the case, the "we were misled" case that Floyd Shivambu has been making, that the media and the oligarchs accuse Zuma of capturing the state. But they're the ones actually capturing the state and the SOEs since he's been removed. And some people are going to be persuaded by this because guess what? There was an article recently that was published around how Johan Rupert is going to be fighting and competing with Eskom. How did Johan Rupert get shares to compete with Eskom? Because under the IPP structure and agenda and the renewable push, an energy exchange was formed. So remember Patrice Motsepe said Eskom's energy was too cheap, then Eskom's energy became too expensive, then IPPs became profitable and viable and cheaper than Eskom, quote unquote, cheaper than Eskom, even though that's not really true. I'll tell you why another day. Now, all of those IPPs, they need an exchange to sell electricity to municipalities and to Eskom. Who is the dealer? Who is the middleman? Rupert, Energy Exchange of Southern Africa. He's already been doing an exchange through Vumatel because he owns Vumatel, Dark Fiber Africa. He owns the fiber internet economy in South Africa. That is Rupert infrastructure. If he shuts down your internet, it's over. Game over for you. So under the Vumatel structure, other companies can then sell to homes, etc., etc. But it's not really real competition or real companies because all of these companies have to feed into the Rupert infrastructure to sell. So the Energy Exchange of Southern Africa, owned by Rupert. So what he's going to argue is, they said I was selling SAA, but Pravin Gordhan tried to sell SAA for 51 rands to Takatso Consortium. Isn't that capture? They said I was capturing SAA. Patrice Motsepe, all of a sudden, with the Ikamva Consortium, owns a lot of IPPs, right? The Ikamva Consortium won a lot of the bid window offers, and Patrice Motsepe is the South African partner. There's also H1 Holdings. There's Globelec is another partner in that Ikamva consortium. Go Google it. So he's going to actually say, but these guys are the ones who are capturing. They said, I'm capturing. What did I capture? What did I get? Where's my benefit? But look at the brother-in-law. Look at Rupert. Look at Capitec, which is now doing more and more and more. Look at them going into the townships to get spaza shops. He's going to make those arguments. And people are going to buy them, by the way. They're going to buy them. So this is the case that Zuma is making to the body of the ANC. Now, some comments. Will this expulsion decision stop the political something or the risk of a push for a future merger with the ANC? No. Jacob Zuma has something that the ANC will want in the next election. 2.5 and possibly more million votes. 2.5 million votes and possibly more. And the support of most of KwaZulu-Natal province. The ANC knows what the numbers are. They were at 62% in 2014, in the 2014 election. They were at 57 in the 2019 elections, 57%. Now they're at 40% in 2024. Unemployment remains high. Corruption remains high. Crime remains high. Water is becoming a crisis. So even though ESCOM has been solved a little bit, we saw the challenges with electricity and the meters and the unpopularity of some of the decisions in Soweto just a few days ago, while the ANC was doing one thing which was popular, which is to close down the spaza shops, which are owned by Abo, my friend. On the other hand, they were pissing off a whole lot of Soweto with these meters that they were saying we need to renew them by the 24th, otherwise you're going to be out of electricity. And it just was something that was not landing. So the ANC is trying to reclaim vote share, but they're not necessarily going to be likely to be able to reclaim vote share. You know what? It's very easy when you're not running anything to say, I can do it better. And if you were running the country at a time when people thought you were doing it better, those people will come back and say, yeah, let's give it back to this guy because you guys are failing, right? So this is the benefit of what Zuma has. He has almost the same Trump effect. People felt that the economy was better under Trump. They felt that they were doing better under Trump. So those 4 years that Trump was out of office helped Trump because the Bidenomics started not feeling good to people. And when they started thinking, well, when we had Trump, there were no wars, the money was better for us, we were doing better, let's give it back to Trump. That's exactly what the ANC is going to be facing in 2029. This DA-ANC coalition also is going to face, it's going to keep having the DA undercutting them. So the DA may be able to grow. And by the way, the DA is not going to stick in this whole thing till the end. At the point where they realize now we have to fight for vote share, they'll jump. That may be post-2027. So let's assume Fikile Mbalula wins, or let's say even Paul Mashatile wins. At the point where Paul Mashatile wins, DA is out, right? It's going to be in December. Starting of 2028, they're going to say, no, Tina, we're not in this thing anymore. We don't support Paul Mashatile. We've got issues with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're out. And they'll start preparing for the election. Billionaires will give them lots of money. They were given lots of money in this other election. So the ANC knows that. People like Panyaza Lesufi don't want to do deals with the DA anymore. They would rather work with people that they know that they've got a relationship with. Zuma has 2.5 million votes. It's a lot of votes if you've been losing votes. They've got momentum, they've got a lot of attention, and you may feel because the mainstream media doesn't always show the reality. But MK is very popular in the townships. They're very popular, and they're gaining popularity because they came out of nowhere and got nearly 2.5 million votes. That's a lot of votes. And obviously the joining of Floyd Chivambo, all of this, people view them as having the juice, the low of big momentum. Big momentum is being perceived there. So what I'm trying to say is that he may be able to negotiate in a stronger position. The EFF expulsion, or the formation, the expulsion that led to the formation of the EFF really hurt the ANC electorally. And the Jacob Zuma and now MK creation expulsion has hurt the ANC further. And they may not be able to continue without those votes because the trend line is negative for them, right? So the hope seems to be that this expulsion will close the Zuma chapter. But Jacob Zuma remains the most popular politician in South Africa, more popular than Cyril Ramaphosa, more popular than anyone else. And that changes the dynamic. This is not a situation where Julius Malema could not leave with the Youth League. He couldn't leave with it formally and say, I'm leaving with these guys. Zuma now has these votes. When they expelled him and the way that he moved, he already, at the point where you expel him, he already has 2.3 million proven votes. That's different from expelling somebody, and then you keep the ANC Youth League, and then you try to appoint Lamula and others to try to stop the loss. But we saw there was a mass exodus even then. ANC cannot afford the mass exodus. Now, that retains this possibility that at a later stage, a higher body of the ANC can actually say, reverse that expulsion, let's bring Zuma back. Now, will the Zuma strategy work in and of itself? This grand strategy to recapture the ANC, it doesn't have to work to be effective. He doesn't have to win that outcome to have an effective strategy for what he's trying to do. Let me explain. Jacob Zuma can fail to rejoin the ANC, but if he keeps a narrative going that he was unfairly expelled from the ANC and that the current ANC leadership is not good for the organization, this can create more people who walk away from the ANC voluntarily into the MK camp. Let's not be delusional or forget that a lot of rank and file members of the ANC are not happy with this stuff. It's not just the South African Communist Party. It's not just COSATU. People who have been in the ANC for a long time dislike the Democratic Alliance. They dislike it. They dislike Tony Leon. They dislike Helen Zille. They didn't even like any of the developments that happened recently under John Steenhuisen. Why am I saying this? Those people are uncomfortable with the current partnership. And some of the people within the ANC love Jacob Zuma. They love him. They view him as being unruly, maybe ill-disciplined in the way that he's doing this thing, but they love him. Do not underestimate that love. Some politicians have charisma. Some politicians are intellectual. The ones with charisma, once they come into an organization, hey, it's difficult to remove them. Zuma is the humble Zulu boy with the swag and all of that stuff. People love Zuma in the ANC. Make no mistake about it. They do not love Cyril Ramaphosa. They don't. Not in the same way that they love Zuma. Even Thabo Mbeki could not get the Zuma love. He was viewed as aloof. Cyril is viewed as having bought the party at conference. That's the perception. I'm not saying it's real or it's not real. We don't know because documents were sealed. But what this does, because Zuma will keep this fight going, there will be people with itchy feet in the ANC who will try to stay and try to stay and try to stay. And then finally say, I'm done. I'm going to Kwazam Konto now. And that's a real risk that exists for the ANC. You cannot, you can send emails and statements and Fikile Mbalula can shout, etc., but you cannot keep members of a party loyal by force or by PowerPoint presentation. You can't do it. In the rural areas, in the townships, in the informal settlements, where you cannot just buy a vote, people will start saying, this thing is not working for me. Congolos is not working for me. And they'll go. Those grannies in KZN, people were busing them to vote, and they voted for Zuma. Don't underestimate that, right? If the streets and the branches feel that momentum is with MK, they'll move to MK. If the rival faction feels that they can push out the current faction, they may very well also move with MK. So he doesn't have to get re-merged to ANC for this to work for growing even the MK. And that's where the uncomfortable reality lies for the ANC's current predicament. To be quite honest, one of the biggest mistakes the ANC made under Cyril Ramaphosa was to try to feed middle-class appetite to see Zuma's blood and the elite's appetite to see Zuma's blood. Because the elite said, we want this guy to go to jail. We want to see him locked up. We want to see him punished for what him and the Guptas did. They were driven by vengeance and anger. Not by what happened in 1994 when everyone said, no, we don't want to see de Klerk punished. We don't want to see our leaders, our apartheid leaders to be in prison. That's what they said. That's what they said. Now, when Zuma was removed, a transitional moment, if you will, they then say, no, this guy, lock him up. That's what they said. And in that appetite to give them that, you know, in politics, it's quite interesting, the dynamics of politics, because power can show you interesting things. For instance, right now, there's been disclosures that the Minister of Justice took money that was implicated or affiliated with VBS, right? However, even though she oversees the NPA and there's a conflict of interest and the president has said he's applying his mind, he's taking his time to apply his mind because he doesn't have an appetite or an interest to remove Minister Simelane. He doesn't want to remove her. That's basically it. When the NPA said that they're not going to prosecute anyone for Phala, right? The national NPA, there was NPA Limpopo, NPA locally then said, it's fine, doesn't matter, it's okay. We're okay with that. But when Zizi Godwa, yeah, when they said they're not going to prosecute him anymore, NPA came and said, no, we want this guy. We're looking for this guy. We are going to look into this decision. Within an hour, they had said that. What I'm trying to put across is that if President Ramaphosa actually had said, I don't want to pursue this guy, I want to stabilize the ANC, I want Zuma to have dignity within the ANC, let's maintain the power base of the ANC and find a way to live with Zuma, that would have prevented all of this. But it was that desire and that appetite to serve Zuma, to the donors, to the billionaires, to certain parts of, upper middle class South Africa. That is what unraveled what the ANC is right now. It was a mistake then. And unfortunately, things are where they are now. But time will show us. We will all be here to witness the political something and to critically evaluate everything that plays out. What do you think, though? Do you think Zuma will be successful? Do you think MK will be able to retain this momentum? He said some other stuff about Julius Malema, but I don't have time to discuss that today. We'll talk about it in another episode. Till the next one.